So this is my first time in Toronto, so thank you for having me here. Um, so I'm going to talk a little bit about building an international product. So how do you build a product which works globally, and how do you understand customer insights from all over the world as you scale your product? I tend to start by usually doing a few quick polls to understand the audience. So how many people, if you could do a show of hands, work at a company which is smaller than, or doing your own startup or working at a company which is smaller than 20 people? Okay, cool. How many people in the room are engineers, product, people who are building the product? Okay, very cool. How many people have heard of TransferWise before Alex introduced me? Great, okay, thank you, 40% around. Mr. Kanchan, right? Remember, I do agree that moving money abroad is much harder than it should be. So we should talk later on. So just a quick story. So what I thought I'll do is talk a little bit about TransferWise, how the product came around, and what was the problem the founders were trying to solve, how did we solve it, and then from there, it's probably not a deck I'm going to go through all the way. We'll see how it goes with time, but I'll try and give out 3 things that I think are very important as you're bootstrapping and then scaling your company as you scale it across different countries. So this is Christo and Taavet. They both are Estonians. They both used to live in London, and they had a simple problem. Taavet had he was the first employee of Skype, the voice over IP company. He used to get paid in euros, had a rent to pay in London. Christo used to work for Deloitte or PwC, one of the companies, I forget now. And he used to get paid in pounds, had a mortgage in Estonia in euros. Every month, they would go to the bank, and they would try to turn in their current currency and try to get the other currency to pay their bills. And every month, they would not be sure what kind of amount they will get back. So the exchange rate would keep fluctuating. They would see something on Google being the exchange rate, but then when they would go to the bank, they would see something different. Plus, there'd be a lot of fees that they will have to pay. So they came up with this pretty simple, ingenious solution, which was, hey, Christo, I need 1,000 euros. Can you just give me 1,000 euros in Europe? And I'll just pay you the equivalent money in pounds to your local bank account. That's how TransferWise started. Pretty simple. Went on, the first product was a Skype chat after that, so no code written, fastest product to market fit. They found another few people who wanted to use the same product. And then Christo on a weekend hacked up a web page, put a site up. They somehow found some dude on TechCrunch to write about it, saying company's launched. And within 30 minutes, a person came on and put £2,000 to be sent to Europe. That blew my mind. I was like, only on the internet could a person not knowing anybody about this company trust 2 random Estonian dudes, give them, and literally the product was, okay, you created this transfer request. Here's a bank account details. Please go to your Barclays or HSBC account, punch in our account number, and ship us £2,000. I don't know how that guy believed. Like, that was our first customer, and the trust he had was amazing. So, yeah. So, going forward, the company's mission is to move money without borders. We do believe that eventually money transfer will become instant, super convenient, and eventually free, I think. Just a quick stats on the company. We have over 1 million customers across 60 countries. We're moving about $1.6 billion now every month. We started in 2011, so we've been at it for about 6 years. These are the number of routes we run. It's all cool. So the main thing I wanted to talk to you about was learnings around how do you scale an organization structure, and how do you build an organization that as you add people, it actually scales to help you build an international product. So the one thing that Christo and Taavet had, which was pretty ingenious and pretty cool, which is true with a lot of early stage founders, a lot of startup founders, they start up by solving their own problem. So then when they start by solving their own problem, they have insights about the real problem and what kind of customers would use their product. And that tends to work really well and scale really well in the beginning. But over time, what tends to happen is, as you try to go into different use cases or different types of customers, customers in different locations, you tend to start losing that because you don't have that problem. So Christo and Tawet have never lived in, for example, in India. How do you know what the problem is for an Indian customer to move money? So how do you scale that in the organization? So this is true for a lot of companies. A lot of companies have accountability and decision making at the top of the organization. It's not true for a lot of startups, but very true for as a company grows. And usually you have the shareholders on top, you have a CEO with a bright idea and a tie, and then you have a product guy, and they have a team. But the customers are usually very unhappy because they don't know, there's no association between, what's driving the company towards getting more high revenue and what kind of products you're building, and the customers are kind of not sure, what is the product market fit here, and how are we actually really, really building a great product. So the alternative that we use is, oops, sorry, I skipped a bunch of, okay. So the way we organized was we worked in independent autonomous teams. So the idea was we built vertical teams which solve specific customer problems. So I'll give you an example. We went to Australia, or let's say we went to Brazil. So Brazil became our fastest growing market that we launched last year in the history of the company. And if you think about the way we organize, if a lot of traditional companies, the way they organize this decision making would be like the CEO or somebody on top would say, hey, we should go to Brazil. Not knowing what is the product, what is the requirement there, how do you build a product in the local market there. The way we organize is there is a team to launch Brazil. They are fully equipped to do everything they need. They can do their own hiring. They basically go to Brazil, do the market research. They have engineers, product, they have customer support, operations, all in one vertical team. And they have carte blanche on what they need to do to figure out how to build a product for Brazil. And basically what we've done is vertically organize this across 25 different teams. And the few principles we use, so for the engineers in the room, how many engineers in the room? Oh, few. Okay, so maybe some of this will not be relevant, but I'll go through this quickly. One of the things that we try to do is, as you're vertically organized in an organization, one of the biggest things that a startup has over a big organization is they can move fast. That's pretty much the biggest thing you have as a startup. Any other incumbent is going to have way more money, way more people to build the product. But then even startups fall into this trap, which is they organize themselves in a certain way that they build dependencies within the organization. So they say, I cannot make this change for my Brazilian customer because our verification or KYC team has to build this stuff for doing ID verification. And I cannot do it because they have to make the change. So we organize in a way that basically we run an internal open source. So everybody, all the code is common code. Every part of the code is owned, but anybody can make changes to any part of the code. So that way, think about big software projects like Linux has been built this way, where other people can contribute, and you can at least move the things forward very quickly. The other thing we do, we don't believe in project managers, a lot of having a lot of people in the middle. The builders are very close to the customers. So engineers actually take phone calls. Engineers actually answer emails once in a while, take customer chats. And the idea here being the person who's closest to solving the problem, closest to the problem should be solving it. So this was a challenge that Christo, who's the founder, one of the founders, he did. Basically said, let's make it interesting. This is one of our Slack chats. Any engineer who takes 20 calls, 30 emails, blah, 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 by 1st March, I will make cake for them. If you think about it, the company was scaling pretty fast. You can't spend time with the CEO or the co-founder every week. He's very accessible, but still, it's hard. So, and I love how he said, sorry, Harsh, can't participate. But basically, the engineers made him pay for it. So they got on the calls and they got customers to talk to customers, and eventually he was making a lot of cakes. But the great outcome out of this was there were so many things that we got fixed that month. There were so many things that engineers just got on the call and go, oh my God, that's very stupid, and it's gonna take us maybe 2 hours to fix and ship. So a lot of things got done for our customers. So get the engineers closer to customers. And the last one, and I leave it at this today, build, measure, learn, and fail fast. So I'm guessing a few of you have read the Lean Launchpad, a lot of books on lean startup. I do fundamentally believe that companies that will iterate faster, fail faster, and learn faster will eventually succeed. So if I can run more experiments in production with my own users, and I can get more insights from them faster than any other company, I will be able to win. So that's where a lot of startups are going to get very slow, because as they get bigger and like the code base gets bigger, the product gets bigger, they get starting putting more processes in place, and they're not learning as fast. So whenever you're doing any idea or iteration on that, try to see what you can do manually. So Christo, go back to the early story I told you. He put up this form. All it did was, once you put in all the details, pressed enter, sent him an email. That's all it did. Looked like a very legit website in the front, but it let somebody move 2,000 pounds. What he was trying to do there was not trying to build the entire company on the first day. What he was trying to do over there was figure out if somebody's going to use it. He'll get his email address, and then he'll be able to learn from there and talk to the customer and understand how to build this. And over that, of course, we've built a lot of processes and a lot of systems now that does all of this automatically. But in every step, even today, the DNA of the company is how can we build, measure, learn very quickly. So, and then that way we don't have to build a lot and spend a lot of time. If things don't work, we throw it away. So I'll leave it at that. Happy to take questions.
Fascinating. And I love that you brought up the Brazil example, because we actually do a lot of business in Brazil, and I've never experienced greater challenges moving money. We've dealt with 10 different providers. They take a chunk out of you, like 10, 15%. You got to physically. Are you bypassing the regulations through this? How are you doing it? Like, how are you getting?
No,
like Brazil. It's like Brazil doesn't want money to be transferred.
Yeah,
like they
you're
purposely. Right. So how are you doing it? Like I understand your initial example.
Yeah. So for the record, we're completely regulated and we're completely working legally in Brazil.
Well, that sucks. That's not.
So
fun.
actually, that's a very good point. So there's a few things. So have you tried TransferWise first?
No, I haven't. I just looked it up. Though.
Okay, cool. So and you're moving money to Brazil, yeah?
Mostly.
Yeah. So to Brazil is much easier to do than from Brazil. Brazil is a very regulated currency control system. Yeah. Which maybe we can help you with too over time. So actually, when we entered Brazil, we saw that there was the product was the current incumbent product. The fees was over 10% is how much you would pay. Like, so if you're moving 1,000 Canadian dollars into Brazil, you're losing, $100. That's insane. And we were able to build. So what we do is we use the domestic system, right? So if you think about it, TransferWise sits on the internet, and we have a bank account on both sides. So we say, in Brazil, so if you're moving money from Canada to Brazil, you will come in and you will create an order on TransferWise, a transfer on TransferWise, and then you will push us money in Canada through the local banking system. That is cheaper, faster, and usually like very, very low prices to use. And then we see the transaction come in, and then we push the transaction into Brazil, again using the local banking system. So because money doesn't cross borders, there's a lot of fees we can save.
You have capital in two separate countries.
Exactly. And then there's a whole bunch of algorithms we use around liquidity management and making sure money is flowing around the world, because given we're covering 60 countries.
So you have real capital in your company then?
Yeah. I mean, and so we are peer-to-peer quite a bit. So if you see about a lot of routes are two ways. So people who send money from Canada to US, also there's some people who send money from US to Canada, so we can match you directly.
Right, so one more question?
Happy to chat more. Yeah, we can happy to chat more. There's a lot of different things. The Western Union has a lot of costs related to the way to do compliance. There's a lot of costs being on the ground. And Western Union, I think it's a fair point. Yeah.
How do you manage because if you have capital on both sides, if the FX rate that they're quoting and the government is quoting is wrong, which it often is, you can have a mismatch of capital perhaps.
So the government doesn't so FX rates come from the market. So we will use the mid-market rates. So the rates you get on TransferWise, it's the same rate you can just Google. So we use a bunch of rate providers, but we use the same rate providers that Google would use. So it's completely mid-market. We do have systems that we have built in place to do automatic trading and hedging. So we do have, I'll give you an example. Brexit. So Brexit happened, right? And when David Cameron stood up and said he's going to resign, like 8:30 in the morning, I remember I was watching TV, BBC, everybody's watching BBC, and we're like, oh my God, he's going to resign. And he resigns, and the pound just took a big dump. We had customers calling in saying, we want to move money, we want to move money, we want to move pounds out, right? So we had an outflux of pounds on our system, and we had not enough pounds coming in. So we had to do liquidity management of like, making sure we had like hedges and trades in place to make sure we could de-risk our own business. And then a lot of this is now, over the years, we've built systems which can automatically help us do that.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, guys.